The war is won. The rhetoric of liberty is everywhere. And yet in that... Welcome back to the Deep Dive. Today we are grabbing that foundational story of the American Revolution, giving it a good shake, and just seeing what surprising truths fall out.
Yeah.
We're really shifting focus, moving past the marble statues and the big political speeches to dig into what one source is calling a human-centered history.
And that shift is, well, it's absolutely crucial. Our deep dive today is built around this exploration of the People's American Revolution, a visual history.
Right, the project from Geoffrey Ward associated with Ken Burns.
Exactly. And it's an approach that it really demands that we confront the revolution not as this neat, tidy political event, but as something much messier.
Much messier is a good way to put it.
A period that critics have, I think, pretty accurately described as a savage civil war.
Wow.
Yeah.
That phrase alone, a savage civil war, that immediately changes the whole emotional landscape, doesn't it?
It has to.
So our mission here is to really understand how this visual history frames that conflict and to focus on the moral complexity that so often gets glossed over.
Right, the parts that are airbrushed out. And that moral complexity, it all pivots on a single massive question for that founding generation.
Which is?
When they declared those incredible soaring ideals, who specifically was truly entitled to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness.
Yep.
And this approach, it uses a whole stack of sources, essays, new visuals, old rhetoric to force us to confront the paradoxes baked into that founding moment.
Okay, so let's dig into the method here, because the book's approach sounds like a scholarly intervention. It commits to what the source calls bottom-up storytelling.
It's a very deliberate choice. I mean, traditional histories are always top-down. They follow in the generals, the diplomats, the guys in the room where it happens.
Right.
Bottom-up storytelling just pivots the camera, you could say. It moves the spotlight away from the political leaders, your Washingtons, your Jeffersons, and points it right at the people whose lives were just completely upended by the fighting.
So we're focusing on the people whose sacrifices were, immediate and often just unrecorded. We're talking about the ordinary soldiers, farmers, artisans, and shopkeepers.
Exactly.
But how hard is that to actually do? A truly bottom-up history of the 18th century. These are the people who, they often didn't keep detailed diaries or write letters that survive.
And that's the core challenge. That's where the method of this visual history gets so interesting. You can't just rely on long political documents.
Right.
You have to look at material culture, court records, pension applications, what few oral histories exist. It means you're piecing together lives from fragments.
And recognizing that their reasons for fighting were probably pretty different.
Very different, often very local, protecting a farm, trying to find some economic stability, or for many, just trying to escape bondage, not purely ideological.
And since this is tied to Ken Burns, it obviously leverages that sort of cultural and visual richness. It's designed to feel, I guess, cinematic, like a companion to a big documentary series.
Totally. The source notes that the visuals aren't just there to be pretty pictures, they're data points. The book integrates maps, 18th century paintings, political pamphlets, and this is critical newly commissioned artwork.
To visualize what wasn't recorded.
Exactly, to try to visualize those lesser heard experiences. And what's really fascinating is how the writings of Thomas Paine are just woven throughout the entire thing.
Okay, so why is Paine so important in a bottom-up history? He was an elite writer, for sure.
He was, but Paine provided the revolutionary language that ordinary people could grab onto and use immediately. His rhetoric was common sense, plain language, a direct appeal to individual liberty.
He's the one who catalyzed the masses.
He is. And by weaving his voice throughout the narrative, the authors make those revolutionary ideals feel so present, so immediate, even as the rest of the story shows us exactly where those ideals started to break down in practice.
And that's the key transition, isn't it? If Paine's rhetoric is the ideal, then the next step, expanding the cast, shows us where that ideal ran into, impossible contradictions. Because to tell a truly bottom-up story, you have to dramatically expand the cast list.
You absolutely have to. And the source material has this really broad inclusion mandate. It pays specific attention to 4 groups that are so often pushed to the margins of the standard story.
Women, African Americans, Native Americans.
And crucially, the Loyalists.
The Loyalists. Okay, so when you start to introduce the experiences of these groups, the revolution suddenly stops being this simple us versus them story.
Completely falls apart.
So when you see the conflict through all these different lenses, what does that broader view actually reveal about the true brutal nature of it?
It transforms it into that savage civil war we mentioned earlier. The conflict wasn't just, formal battles between two uniformed armies.
It was neighbor against neighbor.
Especially in the borderlands. For people in the periphery, this was not some intellectual debate over taxation. It was a raw, existential struggle for survival and identity.
So let's focus on that moral complexity you mentioned, because this bottom-up view really shines a light on it. For a lot of people, the central contradiction of the founding is just. It's so stark. How could a fight for liberty based on this idea of natural rights coexist with the widespread brutal practice of chattel slavery?
And the book just forces you to hold both of those truths at the same time. It fully acknowledges that the same men who passionately and sincerely fought for freedom from tyranny were
Simultaneously denying that freedom to hundreds of thousands of other people.
often people they personally owned. And this wasn't just simple hypocrisy. It was a foundational paradox that was written directly into the economic and legal DNA of the new country.
And this is where the specific details from the sources become just unforgettable and frankly, heartbreaking. Publishers Weekly praised the book for confronting this with a really precise, painful example.
Right?
Can you tell us about the betrayal at Yorktown?
This is the moment that just drives the whole paradox home. As the American forces win their victory at Yorktown, the symbolic peak of the fight for freedom, one of the first things that happens
Is the forced return of enslaved people to owners.
Yes. These were individuals who had often risked everything. They fled plantations, they served with military units, all on the promise of liberty, only to be legally handed back as property.
Just think about the sheer depth of that betrayal. The war is won. The rhetoric of liberty is everywhere, and yet in that instant, the legal and economic rights of slaveholders just completely supersede the natural rights of these people.
It shows you what the real foundation was.
Property rights. That was the unshakable foundation of the new republic, even over the very ideals the war was supposedly fought for.
It's the ultimate contradiction, yes. It just underscores that even in that moment of triumph, the promises of life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness had these very narrow, very specific boundaries.
Boundaries defined by race and property.
Exactly, and it's important to note the scholarly firepower they bring in here. You have historians like Vincent Brown, who studies the history of slavery, or Alan Taylor, who focuses on these internal conflicts. They give the analysis real weight.
They're providing the context.
They're explaining why this betrayal wasn't some kind of, policy failure. It was a foundational feature of the new nation's laws.
So let's talk about the other groups that help frame this as a civil war. When we look at the Loyalists, for example, the conflict becomes truly, deeply internal.
Oh, absolutely. The Loyalists, the Americans who stayed loyal to the crown, they were not some tiny minority. They might have been a third of the population in some areas.
And their fight was just as American as the Patriots.
It was. For them, the savage Civil War meant their property was taken, they were forced to flee, they were exiled. The book really highlights how their losses defined the brutal, brother against brother nature of this conflict.
And then the inclusion of Native Americans. That brings in a whole other dimension, far beyond just Britain versus America.
It turns the whole thing into a continental crisis. Many Native nations, like in the Iroquois Confederacy, they sided with the British.
Because they knew what was coming.
They correctly saw that a Patriot victory meant unchecked, relentless land expansion into their territories. For them, the war wasn't about abstract liberty, it was about physical sovereignty and survival.
So, zooming back out, the narrative explicitly frames the revolution as two massive conflicts happening at the same time.
Right. It's a world war and a civil war.
That dual framing seems essential.
It is. It was a world war because you had Britain, France, Spain, the Netherlands. All these global powers were involved. North America was just one theater in this huge geopolitical struggle.
But at the same time,
it was a deep internal civil war, tearing communities apart from the northern forests all the way down to the southern plantations.
that makes the whole event feel so much larger, but also so intensely personal. It's this grand drama, and it's also a tragic, intimate fight happening, on your front porch.
Precisely. And that intimacy is why including the lesser heard voices, the farmers, the enslaved people, the loyalists, is so critical. By weaving all these viewpoints together, the material helps us today grapple with the profound contradictions that those founders either ignored or just actively crushed.
I think we need to spend some time on the implications of all this.
Mm.
For you, the learner, trying to absorb this revised history, what's the so what of seeing it as a bottom-up, savage civil war?
Well, it means we have to fundamentally recalculate what we mean by sacrifice. We so often view the sacrifices of the revolution through the lens of political victory, the Constitution, the new nation.
Right.
But this narrative isn't just about documents or battles. It's about rigorously re-examining who participated and, crucially, what they actually gained or lost.
But does framing it as a savage civil war, does that risk diminishing the genuine political achievement? I mean, establishing a new republic was a huge deal. How does the source balance that undeniable success with the moral failures we've been talking about?
And that's the core tension the book presents. It doesn't really offer easy answers. The sources absolutely acknowledge the radical Republican ideals. The idea of self-governance was truly world-changing.
Sure.
But the book shows that the price of that achievement was paid disproportionately by those who were excluded. It means that any celebration of independence has to be constantly weighed against an accountability for the betrayal.
So if people risk their lives for freedom, whether they were a patriot soldier or an enslaved person hoping for a chance, and then they were immediately betrayed by the new government,
then their sacrifice weighs very differently on the historical ledger, and it demands our recognition today.
it changes the entire emotional feel of the revolution, really.
Yeah.
It turns it from this straightforward story of heroism into a much more complex tragedy of human cost, where political success existed right alongside deep moral exclusion.
And that is the lasting impact of this revised history. The book shows very clearly that the revolution's founding ideals, those incredibly powerful abstract ideas of liberty and equality, they continue to challenge America today.
We're still fighting the same battles.
We are still grappling with who those ideals truly apply to. A lot of the political struggles of the 19th, 20th, and even 21st centuries are really just attempts to fix those original exclusions, to enforce the universal principles of the Declaration against the specific exceptions of the Constitution.
That is a necessary and a really profound perspective. Thank you for helping us dive into this challenging and essential revisionist history. And to you, our listener, thank you for sharing this source material with us and prompting this deep dive, forcing us to confront the past's messiest truths.
And as you think about this revised history, consider this final thought. If we accept the framing of the American Revolution as a savage civil war, where you have multiple groups of ordinary people, patriot farmers, enslaved people, native warriors, loyalist artisans, all fighting against each other, what does that imply about how we remember history? It forces us to ask if it was a civil conflict, were the ultimate victors, the founders, just the successful faction? And if so, how much of their victory narrative relies on silencing the perspectives of all the other Americans whose pursuit of happiness was either ignored or actively crushed?
Grab The American Revolution by Geoffrey C. Ward, now on sale, $60.95. Don't miss this chance and build good habit and achieve remarkable results. Buy now, today.
Like and subscribe for more Bookhaven podcasts.